My name is Claire, and for most of my life, I believed I was the problem. Not because anyone said it directly. My parents never sat me down and told me I was less important than my sister, but they didn't have to. Some truths don't need words. Emma is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was the bright one, the social one, the one who needed extra help, extra attention, extra everything. I was the one who figured things out on my own. When Emma struggled with math in elementary school, my parents hired a tutor. When I struggled with math, my father told me to read the textbook more carefully. When Emma wanted to play soccer, they signed her up for the elite travel team at $300 a month. When I wanted to join the school band, they said the rental fees were too high and suggested I try something free instead. When Emma applied to colleges, my parents toured 15 campuses with her over the course of a year. When I applied to colleges, my mother handed me a stack of brochures and told me to let her know what I decided. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because context matters. By the time I was 17, I understood the pattern. Emma needed support. I needed to be self-sufficient, so I became exactly that. I worked 2 part-time jobs in high school and saved enough to cover my first year at the local community college. My parents paid for Emma to attend a private university 6 states away. Tuition there was $45,000 a year. Mine was $3,000. When people asked why I didn't go to a 4-year school, I said community college made financial sense, and it did. What I didn't say was that financial sense was my only option. I transferred to a state university after 2 years, paid my own tuition with scholarships and loans, and graduated with a degree in environmental science. I was proud of myself. My parents sent a card. Emma graduated the same year from her private school. My parents threw her a party, invited 70 people, and gave a speech about how proud they were of her resilience and growth. I stood in the corner holding a glass of wine I was too young to legally drink and wondered if anyone would notice if I left early. They didn't. I went to graduate school on a partial scholarship and worked 3 jobs to cover the rest. I studied environmental policy and sustainable agriculture. I published 2 research papers before I even defended my thesis. My parents asked me once how school was going. I said it was fine. They said that was good and then spent 20 minutes talking about how Emma was thriving in her new marketing job. I wasn't angry, not really. Anger requires the belief that things should have been different. I just accepted that this was how it was, and I kept working. It was a Tuesday in March when I got the email. I was sitting in the library revising a chapter of my thesis when my phone buzzed. The subject line read, National Merit Scholarship for Environmental Innovation, finalist notification. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. I'd applied for the scholarship 4 months earlier, mostly on a whim. It was one of those prestigious awards you hear about but never actually think you'll get. The kind of thing that goes to people with connections, with families who know how to work the system. People like Emma. The email informed me that I'd been selected as one of 5 national recipients. The award included $50,000, a feature in a national academic journal, and a public recognition ceremony in Washington, D.C. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop, walked outside, and sat on a bench in the cold for 20 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, letting the realities settle into my bones. I'd done it, entirely on my own. The ceremony was scheduled for mid-May. The email asked me to confirm my attendance and provide the names of up to 4 guests who would receive VIP seating. I thought about my parents, about whether I should tell them. Then I thought about the card they'd sent for my undergrad graduation, the one with the generic congratulations printed on the front and their signatures inside. No note, no message. I decided I'd tell them eventually, but I didn't need to rush. For now, I wanted this to be mine. I spent the next few weeks preparing for my thesis defense, finishing my graduate coursework, and quietly making plans for the ceremony. I bought a plane ticket to D.C. with money from my research assistant stipend. I looked at dresses online but couldn't afford any of them. I told my roommate about the scholarship. She screamed and hugged me and insisted we celebrate with cheap wine and pizza. That night, sitting on our apartment floor surrounded by boxes from our impending move-out, she asked me if my family knew. I said not yet. She gave me a look that said she understood more than I'd ever told her. Some people just get it. Emma called me 3 days after I got the scholarship email. She was getting married. She'd been dating Connor for 2 years, and he'd proposed at some elaborate beachside event that she described in breathless detail for 15 minutes. I put her on speaker and kept folding laundry while she talked. She wanted a spring wedding next year. She'd already had a venue picked out, some historic estate with gardens and a ballroom. She'd hired a planner. She had a Pinterest board with 400 pins. I congratulated her. I meant it. Emma wasn't a bad person. She was just Emma. "You'll be a bridesmaid, obviously," she said. Not a question, a statement. I said, "Sure." "Mom and Dad are helping with costs. They're being so generous. I know weddings are expensive, but they really want this to be special." I didn't ask how much they were contributing. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, my mother called me to talk about bridesmaids' dresses. She'd already picked them out. They were $250 each. I told her I'd need some time to save up for it. She sighed. "Claire, this is your sister's wedding. Can't you just make it work?" I said I'd figure it out. I always did. Over the next few months, Emma's wedding consumed every family conversation. My mother called me weekly with updates I didn't ask for. The flowers, the cake, the seating chart. I listened. I said the right things. I didn't mention my scholarship. In late April, I was home for Sunday dinner, a monthly obligation I still managed to not escape. Emma was showing my parents fabric swatches for table linens. My father looked at the samples with the kind of focused attention I'd never seen him give to anything I'd done. "This one," he said, pointing to an ivory swatch. "It's elegant." Emma beamed. I ate my pasta quietly. My mother turned to me. "Claire, you've been so quiet lately. Is everything okay?" I could have told her then, about the scholarship, about the ceremony, about the fact that I'd achieved something most people spend their entire careers hoping for. Instead, I said, "Yeah, everything's fine, just busy with school." "Well, try to stay on top of things," she said. "We'll need you focused for wedding prep soon." I nodded. Emma looked at me across the table. For just a second, I thought I saw something in her expression. Uncertainty, maybe. Or guilt? But then my father asked her another question about the venue, and the moment passed. I left that dinner early, citing a headache. No one tried to stop me. The formal invitation arrived by mail in early May. It was heavy cardstock in a cream-colored envelope, embossed with the seal of the National Academic Foundation. Inside was a printed invitation to the scholarship ceremony, along with 4 VIP guest passes and a schedule of events. The ceremony was on May 18th, 2 weeks before Emma's wedding. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the guest passes for a long time. 4 passes. I could bring 4 people. I thought about my parents, about whether they'd come if I asked. Then I thought about the last time they'd attended something for me, my community college graduation. They'd arrived late, sat in the back, and left immediately after the ceremony. My mother had complained about the parking the entire drive home. I put the invitation in my desk drawer and didn't mention it to anyone. A week later, I was back at my parents' house for another Sunday dinner. Emma was talking about her bachelorette party. My mother was taking notes. During a lull in conversation, I said, "I have something in May, on the 18th. It's an award ceremony in D.C. My mother looked up. "What kind of ceremony?" "A scholarship, for my research. It's kind of a big deal." "That's nice, honey," she said. Then she turned back to Emma. "So you said you wanted the party in Charleston?" My father didn't look up from his phone. I tried again. "There's a dinner beforehand and VIP seating. I have extra passes if anyone wants to come." This time, my mother actually focused on me. "The 18th? Claire, that's 2 weeks before the wedding. We're in full preparation mode. I don't think we can take a whole day to go to D.C. "It's just one day," I said quietly. "You know how stressful wedding planning is," my mother said. "And your father has work. Can't you just record it or something?" I looked at my father. He still hadn't looked up. "Yeah," I said. "I can record it." Emma finally spoke. "What's the scholarship for?" "Environmental policy research," I said. "It's national. $50,000. She blinked. "50,000? Claire, that's amazing." "Thanks. But yeah, the timing is rough," she said. "We have the final dress fitting that week and the florist meeting and—" I stopped listening. I finished my dinner, helped clean up, and drove back to my apartment. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat on my couch in the dark and accepted, once again, that I would be doing this alone. The week before the ceremony, my mother called. "I feel bad about missing your school thing," she said, "but you understand, right? The wedding is just so soon, and there's so much to do." "I understand," I said. "You're not upset with us, are you?" I thought about that question. Was I upset? No. Upset implied surprise. Upset implied I'd expected something different. "I'm not upset," I said honestly. "Good," she said, relieved. "You've always been so independent. I knew you'd understand." After we hung up, I sat with that word. Independent. It was the word my parents had used my entire life to describe me, as if independence was a personality trait I'd been born with, rather than a survival skill I'd developed out of necessity. I called my grandmother that night. My father's mother had always been different from my parents, sharper, more observant. She lived 3 hours away and visited a few times a year, always with gifts that were thoughtful and specific. She was the one who'd given me a calculator for high school graduation because she knew I was majoring in science. She was the one who'd sent me a check for $100 every semester with a note that said, "For books or anything else you need." When she answered, I told her about the scholarship. She was quiet for a long moment. "That's extraordinary, Claire," she said finally. Her voice was careful, controlled. "Are your parents attending the ceremony?" "They're busy with Emma's wedding." Another pause. "I see." Something in her tone made me sit up straighter. "Would you like me to attend?" I hadn't even thought to ask. "You don't have to. I know it's far." "I'd like to," she said firmly. "Send me the details." "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you." "Claire," she said, and her voice was softer now, "I'm very proud of you." I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until the words hit me. I managed to say thank you before my voice broke. After we hung up, I cried for the first time in months. Not because I was sad, because someone had finally seen me. My grandmother didn't say much when I sent her the ceremony details. She just replied, "Received. I'll be there." But 3 days before I was scheduled to fly to D.C., she called me again. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay." "How long has it been like this?" I didn't need to ask what she meant. "Always," I said simply. She was quiet. Then, "Give me examples." So I did. Not dramatically, just factually. I told her about the tutors Emma had that I didn't, about the college tours, about working 3 jobs while Emma's rent was paid by our parents, about graduations attended and milestones ignored. I told her about the trust fund I'd just recently learned about, the one Grandpa had set up for both of us that somehow only paid for Emma's education. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "I need to make some calls. Don't worry about anything. Just go to your ceremony and accept your award." "Grandma," "She means it, Claire. This is your moment. Let me handle the rest." I didn't know what she meant by that, but I trusted her. I flew to D.C. alone on the morning of May 18th. The ceremony was at 4 in the afternoon at a historic university auditorium. I checked into my hotel, the cheapest one I could find within walking distance, and spent 2 hours getting ready in a dress I'd borrowed from my roommate. It was simple, navy blue, professional. It fit well enough. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought about all the times I'd imagined moments like this. Awards, recognition, success. In those daydreams, my family was always there. I pushed the thought away and took the metro to the venue. The auditorium was beautiful, chandeliers, high ceilings, rows of velvet seats filling up with families and faculty and press. I checked in at the registration desk and was given a name tag and a program. My name was listed 3rd among the 5 recipients. A coordinator led me backstage where the other laureates were waiting. We made small talk. They were all brilliant, researchers and innovators, and people who would change the world. They all had families in the audience. I could see them through the gap in the curtain, parents taking photos, siblings saving seats, grandparents beaming with pride. I looked for my grandmother but couldn't spot her in the crowd. The ceremony began at 4. There were speeches. A video presentation. Each of us was called up individually to receive our award and speak briefly about our work. When my name was called, I walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience was a blur. The host handed me the award, a glass plaque and a certificate, and shook my hand. Then she asked the question, "Claire, your research on sustainable agriculture policy has the potential to reshape how we approach food systems in underserved communities. This is extraordinary work. Is your family here today to celebrate with you?" I looked out at the audience. Hundreds of faces, none of them my parents, none of them Emma. I thought about lying, about saying they were here, about protecting them the way I always had. Instead, I said the truth. They had other priorities today. The room went very, very quiet. The host's smile faltered just slightly. She recovered quickly. "Well, I'm sure they're very proud of you." I didn't respond to that. I simply thanked the committee, accepted my award, and walked off stage with my head high. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just kept walking. After the awards were presented, we moved to a reception hall for dinner and networking. I sat at a table with the other laureates and their families. I smiled politely, I answered questions about my research, I pretended the empty chairs beside me didn't exist. Halfway through dinner, one of the other recipients, a woman named Dr. Patel, who'd won for her work in renewable energy, leaned over. "Your family couldn't make it?" she asked gently. "No," I said simply. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. I shrugged. "It's okay. I'm used to it." Her expression shifted to something I couldn't quite name, sadness maybe, or recognition. "You shouldn't have to be," she said quietly. Before I could respond, the MC announced that each laureate would give a brief speech about their journey. I hadn't prepared anything. When it was my turn, I stood at the podium and looked out at the room, the cameras, the press, the families, and I spoke from the heart. "My name is Claire Mitchell, and I've been working toward this moment for 10 years, I began. I started at community college because that's what I could afford. I worked overnight shifts at a warehouse to pay for textbooks. I applied for every scholarship I could find, and I was rejected for most of them." I paused. I didn't have family connections in academia. I didn't have mentors who opened doors. I didn't have parents who could fund my education or my research. Someone in the audience shifted uncomfortably. "What I had," I continued, "was a belief that my work mattered, that studying how we grow food and feed communities and protect the environment was worth doing, even if no one was watching." I looked directly at the camera, and it turns out someone was watching. This committee, these judges, they saw my work not because of who my family is, but because of what I built on my own. I held up the award. So to anyone out there who feels invisible, who feels like their efforts don't matter because no one's celebrating them, keep going. Your worth isn't determined by who shows up. It's determined by what you do when no one's looking. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. I walked back to my seat, hands shaking, and realized I meant every word. I didn't check my phone during the reception. I talked with researchers and professors. I exchanged contact information. I drank one glass of wine and felt, for the first time in years, like I belonged somewhere. My grandmother found me near the end of the evening. She'd been sitting in the back row the entire time. She'd heard everything. She hugged me without saying a word. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "I recorded your speech," she said quietly, "the whole thing." "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Yes," she said firmly, "I did." We had dinner together at a quiet restaurant near my hotel. She asked about my research, my plans, my life. She listened the way people listen when they actually care about the answers. When we parted ways, she hugged me again. "You did beautifully today," she said, "and this isn't over." I didn't know what she meant. I went back to my hotel, exhausted and emotionally drained. I charged my phone and fell asleep without turning it on. I woke up at 7 a.m. the next morning to 247 missed calls. I stared at my phone, confused. Then I opened my messages. My mother, Claire, call me right now. My father, what the hell did you say at that ceremony? Emma, why didn't you tell me this was being filmed? Dozens of texts from cousins, aunts, uncles, old high school friends. I opened Twitter. The first thing I saw was a video clip of my speech. It had been posted by the foundation's official account. It had 3 million views. The caption read, "Scholar Claire Mitchell on perseverance, independence, and doing meaningful work even when no one's watching." The comments were overwhelming. Where is her family? This made me cry. She said they had other priorities. I'm screaming. The quiet dignity in her voice. This is what strength looks like. I scrolled through hundreds of comments, thousands. People were sharing their own stories of being overlooked, of fighting for recognition, of family members who never showed up. Someone had clipped just the moment when I said they had other priorities, and it had gone even more viral. 15 million views. My phone rang. My mother. I declined the call. It rang again. My father. Declined. Emma. Declined. I turned off my phone, packed my bag, and checked out of the hotel. I wasn't angry. I was just done. I flew home that afternoon and went straight to my apartment. I turned my phone back on long enough to text my grandmother. "I'm home. I'm okay. Thank you for coming." She replied immediately. "We need to talk. Call me when you're ready." I put my phone on silent and slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, I made the mistake of checking my email. My inbox was flooded. Interview requests from news outlets, messages from advocacy organizations, LinkedIn connection requests from people in my field, and buried among them, emails from my family. My mother's subject line, "We need to talk about what you said." My father's, "Call me immediately." Emma's, "Claire, please just talk to me." I opened Emma's first. "Claire, I don't understand what's happening. People are sending me the video and asking why we weren't there. I didn't realize this was such a big deal. I'm sorry, can we please talk?" I read it twice. She didn't realize it was a big deal. $50,000, a national award, a public ceremony. Not a big deal. I closed my email without responding. I opened my father's. "Claire, your mother is extremely upset. You made us look like neglectful parents on national television. You need us to publicly state that your comments were taken out of context. You're being selfish. Emma's wedding is in 2 weeks and you're creating unnecessary drama. Fix this." I closed my laptop. I sat in my quiet apartment and felt something shift inside me. For my entire life, I'd absorbed their neglect. I'd made excuses for them. I'd convinced myself that I was asking for too much, that I was too sensitive, that I needed to be more understanding. But I was done understanding. I was done making myself smaller so they could feel bigger. I picked up my phone and called my grandmother. "I'm ready to talk," I said. My grandmother answered on the first ring. "I was at the ceremony," she said without preamble. "I sat in the back. I watched everything." "I didn't see you," I said. "I didn't want to distract you. This was your day. But Claire, I need you to know something." "What?" "I've been documenting things for years." I went still. "What do you mean?" "Every time your parents spent money on Emma and not you, every milestone they attended for her and missed for you, every conversation where they dismissed your achievements, I've kept records." "Why?" "Because I'm old," she said bluntly, "and I know how families work. I knew eventually there would come a moment when the truth needed to be said out loud, and I wanted proof." My hands were shaking. "What kind of records?" "Financial, photographic, written. Everything." She paused. "Including the trust fund your grandfather left." I closed my eyes. "They spent mine on Emma." "All of it," she confirmed. $120,000. It was supposed to be split equally. They were the trustees. They used your entire portion on Emma's private school and college. "You knew?" "I found out 6 months ago when I requested an audit. I've been working with an attorney since then." I didn't know what to say. "Claire, I'm calling a family meeting," my grandmother continued, "this Sunday at my house. Everyone will be there." "I don't think I can." "You don't have to say anything," she said firmly. "You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to explain. You just have to show up. Can you do that?" I thought about my parents, about Emma, about facing all of them. "Yes," I said quietly. "Good. 2 o'clock. Don't be late." She hung up before I could change my mind. Sunday arrived too quickly. I drove to my grandmother's house in silence, practicing breathing exercises the entire way. When I pulled up, I saw my parents' car, Emma's, two of my aunts, an uncle. My grandmother had called in the whole family. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes before I could make myself go inside. My grandmother opened the door before I could knock. "You're here," she said. "Good, come in." The living room was full. My parents sat on the couch, looking tense. Emma was in an armchair, chewing her thumbnail. My aunts and uncle were scattered around the room, looking confused. No one was talking. My grandmother gestured to an empty chair. "Sit, Claire." I sat. She remained standing, a folder in her hands. "Thank you all for coming," she began. Her voice was calm, controlled, the voice of someone who'd taught high school English for 30 years and knew how to command a room. "I'm sure you're wondering why I called this meeting. The answer is simple. We're going to have an honest conversation about this family, and some of you aren't going to like it." My mother started to speak. My grandmother held up one hand. "You'll get your turn," she said, "but first you're going to listen." She opened the folder. "This," she said, "is 18 years of documentation, receipts, bank statements, photographs, a record of every major expense, event, and milestone in Claire and Emma's lives." She looked at my parents, "And the numbers don't lie." My grandmother pulled out the first sheet. Emma's private elementary school tuition, grades 3 through 8, $72,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, $0. My father shifted in his seat. Emma's private high school tuition, $48,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, $0. My mother's jaw tightened. Emma's undergraduate education at a private university, $180,000. Claire's community college and state university education, paid for by Claire herself, $0. Emma looked at the floor. My grandmother continued. Emma's car, purchased new when she turned 18, $35,000. Claire's car, which she purchased herself at 20, $3,000. She flipped through more pages. Emma's study abroad semester in Italy, $12,000. Claire applied for the same program. You told her it was too expensive and suggested she work instead. I'd forgotten about that. Emma's graduate school application fees, test prep courses, and admissions consultant, $8,000. Claire's graduate school applications, paid for with money she earned waitressing, $600. The room was completely silent. Emma's apartment rent during college, paid monthly by you, $4,000 per month for 4 years, $192,000 total. Claire's apartment rent during college, paid by Claire. My Aunt Susan spoke up. "Okay, we get it. They spent more on Emma. But maybe Emma needed more help." "I'm not finished," my grandmother said sharply. She pulled out another document. "When my husband died, he left an educational trust fund for my granddaughters, $120,000 for Emma, $120,000 for Claire. The money was to be held in trust by their parents until needed for education." My parents had gone very pale. Emma's portion was spent entirely on her education as intended. Claire's portion, she looked directly at my parents, was also spent entirely on Emma's education. Someone gasped. I think it was my aunt. "You were the trustees," my grandmother continued. "You had a legal and moral obligation to split that money equally. Instead, you used all of it for one child and told me the funds were being invested for both girls' futures." My mother started to speak. My grandmother held up one hand. "You'll get your turn," she said, "but first you're going to listen." She opened the folder. "This," she said, "is 18 years of documentation, receipts, bank statements, photographs, a record of every major expense, event, and milestone in Claire and Emma's lives." She looked at my parents, "And the numbers don't lie." My grandmother pulled out the first sheet. Emma's private elementary school tuition, grades 3 through 8, $72,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, $0. My father shifted in his seat. Emma's private high school tuition, $48,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, 0. My mother's jaw tightened. Emma's undergraduate education at a private university, $180,000. Claire's community college and state university education, paid for by Claire herself, 0. Emma looked at the floor. My grandmother continued. Emma's car, purchased new when she turned 18, $35,000. Claire's car, which she purchased herself at 20, $3,000. She flipped through more pages. Emma's study abroad semester in Italy, $12,000. Claire applied for the same program. You told her it was too expensive and suggested she work instead. I'd forgotten about that. Emma's graduate school application fees, test prep courses, and admissions consultant, $8,000. Claire's graduate school applications, paid for with money she earned waitressing, $600. The room was completely silent. Emma's apartment rent during college, paid monthly by you, $4,000 per month for 4 years, $192,000 total. Claire's apartment rent during college, paid by Claire. My Aunt Susan spoke up. Okay, we get it. They spent more on Emma. But maybe Emma needed more help. I'm not finished, my grandmother said sharply. She pulled out another document. When my husband died, he left an educational trust fund for my granddaughters, $120,000 for Emma, $120,000 for Claire. The money was to be held in trust by their parents until needed for education. My parents had gone very pale. Emma's portion was spent entirely on her education as intended. Claire's portion, she looked directly at my parents, was also spent entirely on Emma's education. Someone gasped. I think it was my aunt. You were the trustees, my grandmother continued. You had a legal and moral obligation to split that money equally. Instead, you used all of it for one child and told me the funds were being invested for both girls' futures. My mother started to speak. My grandmother held up one hand. You'll get your turn, she said, but first you're going to listen. She opened the folder. This, she said, is 18 years of documentation, receipts, bank statements, photographs, a record of every major expense, event, and milestone in Claire and Emma's lives. She looked at my parents, and the numbers don't lie. My grandmother pulled out the first sheet. Emma's private elementary school tuition, grades 3 through 8, $72,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, 0. My father shifted in his seat. Emma's private high school tuition, $48,000. Claire attended public school. Cost to you, 0. My mother's jaw tightened. Emma's undergraduate education at a private university, $180,000. Claire's community college and state university education, paid for by Claire herself, 0. Emma looked at the floor. My grandmother continued. Emma's car, purchased new when she turned 18, $35,000. Claire's car, which she purchased herself at 20, $3,000. She flipped through more pages. Emma's study abroad semester in Italy, $12,000. Claire applied for the same program. You told her it was too expensive and suggested she work instead. I'd forgotten about that. Emma's graduate school application fees, test prep courses, and admissions consultant, $8,000. Claire's graduate school applications, paid for with money she earned waitressing, $600. The room was completely silent. Emma's apartment rent during college, paid monthly by you, $4,000 per month for 4 years, $192,000 total. Claire's apartment rent during college, paid by Claire. My Aunt Susan spoke up. Okay, you've missed every birthday dinner, every achievement, every moment that mattered to her. She turned to my parents. And last week, you missed the most important moment of her life so far because you were busy planning a party. It's not a party, Emma said weakly. It's my wedding. I know what it is, my grandmother said, not unkindly. And Claire wasn't asking you to miss it. She was asking you to take one day, one single day to show up for her. Silence. Do you know what she said when I asked her why she didn't push harder for you to attend? My grandmother continued. She said, I'm used to it. My mother's eyes filled with tears. She's used to being an afterthought. She's used to not mattering. And you did that. You taught her that. My father finally spoke. We never meant. I don't care what you meant, my grandmother said. I care what you did. She pulled out her phone and held it up. 3 million people have watched Claire's speech. 3 million people have seen what I've been watching for 18 years. A brilliant, kind, hardworking young woman who achieved something extraordinary despite having no support from the people who should have loved her most. She looked at me, and she did it with grace. She didn't attack you. She didn't name you. She simply told the truth. I felt my throat tighten. So here's what's going to happen, my grandmother said. You're going to sit here and listen to Claire. You're going to hear how your choices affected her, and you're not going to interrupt, defend yourselves, or make excuses. She looked at me. If you want to speak, now is your time. I hadn't planned to say anything. I'd come here thinking I would just sit quietly and let my grandmother handle it. But looking at my parents, at Emma, at the extended family who'd watched this dynamic for years and never said anything, I realized I needed to speak. Not for them, for me. I don't think you ever did any of this on purpose, I began. My voice was steady, calm. I don't think you woke up and decided to love Emma more than me. I think you just fell into a pattern, and it became easier to keep going than to stop and look at what you were doing. My mother was crying now. My father stared at his hands. Emma needed help with math, so she got a tutor. That made sense. But then she needed help with science and English and test prep and college applications. And at some point, Emma needs help became the default, and Claire will figure it out became the assumption. I looked at Emma. She was crying too. I'm not angry at you, I told her. You didn't create this system. You just benefited from it. And I understand that you probably didn't realize how much you were getting because it felt normal to you. I didn't. I swear I didn't know about the trust fund. I didn't know they were spending that much on me. I thought that's how much things cost. I thought you were choosing to do things differently. I know, I said gently, and I did. Emma wasn't malicious. She was just someone who'd never had to question her privilege because it had always been there. But it still hurt, I continued. It hurt to watch you get everything while I got nothing. It hurt to attend 3 jobs while your rent was paid. It hurt to attend your graduation party and know there wouldn't be one for me. It hurt to achieve something I'd worked 10 years for and have you tell me the timing was rough because it interfered with wedding planning. Emma flinched. I love you, I said, but I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being the sister who doesn't matter, the daughter who's only remembered when she's useful. I turned to my parents. I needed you, I said simply. I needed you to show up. I needed you to care, and you didn't. My mother sobbed. We do care. We love you. Maybe, I said, but love without action is just words, and I don't need words anymore. My father cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice was defensive. You're being unfair, he said. Emma needed more support. She wasn't as naturally capable as you. You were always fine on your own. We thought we were helping both of you in the ways you needed. I looked at him for a long moment. Did you ever ask me if I was fine? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Did you ever ask if I wanted help, if I was struggling, if I needed you? Still nothing. Or did you just assume that because I didn't fall apart, I didn't need support? My mother jumped in. You never asked for help. You always just did things on your own. We thought that's how you wanted it. I was 12, I said, when Emma got a tutor and I didn't. I was 12 years old. I didn't know I was supposed to ask for help. I thought if I needed it, you'd notice. My mother's face crumpled. And by the time I was old enough to advocate for myself, I'd already learned that asking didn't work, so I stopped asking. My grandmother spoke up. Did you watch her receive the scholarship? My parents both looked at her. The ceremony, she repeated. It was live-streamed. Did you watch it? My mother hesitated. We were at the florist, so that's a no, flatly. "We were busy," my father said. "Too busy to watch your daughter receive a $50,000 scholarship and give a speech in front of the National Academic Foundation?" my grandmother asked. The question hung in the air. My mother tried again. "We thought we'd watch the recording later." "Did you?" I asked. Silence. "Did you watch it later?" I repeated. My mother looked away. "You didn't," I said. Not a question, a statement. "We got caught up with wedding things," she whispered. "Right, wedding things." My father's jaw tightened. "Emma's wedding is important. So was Claire's scholarship," my grandmother cut him off. "So was her thesis defense. So was her undergraduate graduation. So were 18 years of achievements you couldn't be bothered to acknowledge." She stood up and walked to the window. "You don't get to justify this," she said. "You don't get to explain it away or pretend you had good intentions. You failed her, repeatedly, and she deserved better." I took a deep breath. "I'm not going to Emma's wedding," I said. Emma's head snapped up. "What?" "I'm not going," I repeated calmly. "I can't stand there and celebrate a family that doesn't celebrate me. I can't smile for photos and pretend everything's fine. I'm done pretending." "Claire, please," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "It's my wedding." "I know," I said, "and I'm sorry, but I need to take care of myself, and being there would hurt too much." My mother stood up. "You can't do this. You're her sister. You're in the wedding party." "I can," I said quietly, "and I am." "This is ridiculous," my father said as his voice rose. "You're punishing us for supporting your sister." "No," I interrupted. "I'm establishing a boundary. I'm saying that I won't participate in family events where I'm expected to show up and smile and never ask for anything in return." I looked at each of them. "I'm done being the daughter who doesn't matter, the sister who exists to make everyone else look good. I'm done." "What do you want from us?" my mother asked desperately. "I want distance," I said. "I want space to figure out who I am outside of this dynamic. I want to not feel like I'm begging for crumbs of affection." "For how long?" Emma asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe a long time, maybe forever." My mother gasped. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said. "I'm doing it because staying hurts me, and I've spent my whole life prioritizing your comfort over my pain. I can't do it anymore." I stood up. "Emma," I said, "if you want to build a real relationship with me someday, one that's not about wedding planning or family obligations, I'm open to that. But it will take time, and it will require you to actually see me." She nodded, sobbing. I turned to my parents. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I can't have a relationship with people who make me feel invisible. So unless something fundamentally changes, I need you to respect my distance." I looked at my grandmother. "Thank you," I said, "for everything." She nodded, her eyes bright with tears, and then I walked out. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. My parents called daily. I didn't answer. My mother sent flowers with a card that said, "Please forgive us." I donated the flowers to a nursing home and recycled the card. Emma texted me once. "I'm sorry. I really am. I hope someday you'll let me prove it." I didn't respond, but I didn't delete the message either. I blocked my father's number after he sent me a long email accusing me of destroying the family for attention. My grandmother and I had dinner every Sunday. She told me the legal situation with the trust fund. My parents had agreed to repay the full amount plus interest rather than face a lawsuit. The money would be transferred to an account in my name. I told her I didn't want it. "Take it anyway," she said. "Not for them, for you. It's yours. It always was." So I did. Meanwhile, the scholarship opens doors I'd never imagined. Job offers came in from research institutes and environmental nonprofits. A publisher reached out about turning my thesis into a book for general audiences. I was invited to speak at conferences and universities. People who'd seen my speech reached out to share their own stories. Some of them broke my heart. Some of them gave me hope. I realized I wasn't alone. There were thousands of us, people who'd been overlooked, dismissed, treated as afterthoughts by the people who should have loved us most, and we'd all survived. I started therapy. I talked about my family for the first time without minimizing or excusing their behavior. My therapist asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted to stop feeling like I had to earn love. She said that was a good place to start. Emma's wedding was on June 2nd. I spent the day on a solo hiking trip 3 hours north. I woke up early, packed a lunch, and drove to a trailhead I'd been wanting to visit for years. The trail was steep and challenging, exactly what I needed. I turned my phone off before I started hiking. The woods were quiet, just birds and wind and the sound of my own breathing. I thought about Emma, about whether she was happy. I hoped she was. I thought about my parents, about whether they'd noticed my absence. I assumed they had. I thought about the version of myself who would have gone to the wedding anyway, who would have smiled through the pain and pretended everything was fine. I was grateful I wasn't her anymore. I reached the summit around noon and sat on a rock overlooking a valley. I ate my sandwich and watched clouds move across the sky. I felt peaceful. Not happy exactly, but peaceful. I hiked back down as the sun started to set, drove home, and turned my phone on. There were messages, of course, from relatives who wanted to know why I wasn't at the wedding, from family friends who'd heard there was drama and wanted details, from my mother. Everyone is asking about you. This is embarrassing. From Emma. I understand. I hope you're okay. I deleted most of them. I responded to Emma. I am. I hope you had a beautiful day. She replied immediately. Thank you. It was. But I missed you. I didn't know if I believed that, but I wanted to. 6 months later, I accepted a position at an environmental research institute in Oregon. It was exactly the kind of job I dreamed about. Meaningful work, competitive salary, colleagues who respected me. I moved across the country with 2 suitcases and a car full of books. My grandmother helped me pack. She cried when I left, but told me she was proud. I settled into my new life quickly. I made friends, I joined a hiking group, I adopted a dog named River. I published my book. It was reviewed in the New York Times. My parents sent a card with a check for $50,000 and a note that said, "We want to repay what we took from you." I didn't cash the check. I didn't return it either. I just put it in a drawer and forgot about it. Emma texted me occasionally, small things. Saw this article and thought of you. Hope Oregon is treating you well. I responded politely but didn't invite deeper conversation. Then, 8 months after the wedding, she called. I've been in therapy, she said without preamble, and I'm starting to understand things I didn't before. Okay, I said carefully. I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just say I'm sorry, but actually acknowledge what happened and how I benefited from it. I was quiet. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that I see it now. The money, the attention, all of it. And I'm trying to be better. How? I asked. I'm paying back the trust fund money myself. I talked to Mom and Dad. They gave me the total amount they spent on your share. I'm paying it back in installments. It'll take me a few years, but I want to do it. I sat down. Emma, you don't have to. I do, she said firmly. It's not about the money. It's about acknowledging that I took something that wasn't mine, even if I didn't know it at the time. I felt something shift in my chest. Thank you, I said quietly. Can we... She hesitated. Can we talk sometime? Just talk. No family stuff, no drama. Just sisters? I thought about it. Maybe, I said. Eventually. But I need more time. I understand, she said. I'll wait. We hung up and I sat with the conversation for a long time. I didn't know if Emma and I would ever have a real relationship, but for the first time, I thought it might be possible. It's been a year and a half since the scholarship ceremony. I'm 30 years old now. I live in a small house near the mountains. I have a career I love and friends who see me. My relationship with my parents is still distant. We exchange emails occasionally, polite updates, surface level questions. I don't think they'll ever fully understand what they did, but I've stopped needing them to. Emma texted me once a month. We're careful with each other, gentle. We're building something new, slowly. My grandmother visits twice a year. We cook together and go for walks and talk about everything and nothing. She tells me often that she's proud of me. I'm starting to believe her. I think a lot about that moment on stage, when I said my family had other priorities. It was the truest thing I'd ever said out loud, and it changed everything. Not because it went viral, not because millions of people saw it, but because I finally stopped protecting people who never protected me. I finally chose myself. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you're the overlooked child, the afterthought, the one who's always fine on your own, I want you to know something. Your worth is not determined by who refuses to see it. You are not too much or too difficult or too demanding for wanting to be loved. And you don't have to keep making yourself smaller to fit into spaces that were never built for you. It took me 29 years to learn that. I hope it takes you less time. Because you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to take up space. And the people who can't give you that, they don't deserve you. My name is Claire Mitchell, and this is my story.